here.
Mr. Casucci?
Yeah.
Mrs. Crowe?
Here? Yes, you did.
I get the moment.
I'm still here.
Mr. Ryder, you know what's called. Mr. Malden?
Yeah.
Miss Assistant Superintendent Kasabian? And Ms. Oliver?
Thank you.
Superintendent Smith?
We've reconvened for the purpose of finalizing the fiscal year FY 2011 budget, school year 2010 and 11, in conformance with final numbers voted on by the City Council and by the State of Massachusetts over the last several days. So I think it's appropriate to hear from the superintendent and make sure that whatever adjustments we've made and whatever resources are there keep us on the same track and trajectory that we thought we were on prior to, or at the same time as of our last meeting. Thank you.
The budget that we present this evening represents a decrease in city contributions of new funds from FY10 to FY11 of $2.1 million. The appropriation that will be offset, though, by funds that are recovered through holdover account as well, and additional funds are going to be in reserve next year that we will have access to. And those dollar figures are: the appropriation is $46,884,198. The school holdover, which has been accrued through savings from the last 3 fiscal years, is $1,765,273. And a revenue reserve of $600,000 has been identified, which will be a reserve account in the city account, not in the school department account, but it will be accessible to the school department upon need. And the total available dollars will be $49,249,471. I believe that figure is the target figure that we were interested in attaining over the course of the last 2 weeks. I personally support that dollar figure and feel that it gives us an opportunity to move into the next school year in good shape to provide a very, very solid education to the children of the city of Malden. So I encourage the committee to support this dollar figure this evening.
Chair is going to have a couple of what I hope would be brief questions, but we'll defer it to any of the membership in the meantime.
Ms. Fryer?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions on here, just so I can understand it. Now, on the last column on the right is for next year, right?
Are you looking at the last page on the budget?
No, not the last page. I don't know. There's probably how many from the back. I don't know. What I'm interested in is the blue and gold, the school newspaper. It's one thing that I'm interested in. It's zero budget for next year. It's probably 7 or 8 pages from the back.
Okay.
Eight pages from the back. 8 pages.
Is there a general category? Is it Malden High School, Mr. Fred?
Yeah, it says there's no category on the top. Advertised budget, 2011 updated school budget. Other than that, it doesn't say anything. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th item down on that page.
I do see it, John. It is under blue and gold within the high school budget. Yep.
Yeah, right.
And the question again?
Question is in the last column on the right is zero. Does that mean we're not funding it at all?
No, the blue and gold will, the newspaper will continue to be published next year. Mr. Brown has set aside an appropriation within the larger school budget. It's not targeted specifically at blue and gold. He just made a decision to consolidate the funds into other accounts and other line items. But the blue and gold is going to remain published next year and will be supported by the school.
Okay, I have a few other questions, so on the same page.
Okay.
All right, education supplies for home economics. There's a figure in there, and we don't have any home economics at the high school.
Okay.
There's $8,550.
In the middle of the page?
Yeah, it's just along the middle of the page.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just trying to understand.
Ms. Oliver, do us a favor.
We're working with a new chart of accounts, and the title, we don't have a chart of account for a specific category, so we had to put it in the home ec category. Once we get into the chart of accounts, the budget is completed, we can work with a software company to change the title. I'd have to go through all those papers to find out what particular program that goes to, but that's...
All right, so you have to change the title of that? Is that
Right.
what you're saying? Okay, I have a couple of other questions. Maybe you can answer. Right under that, Teacher Industrial Arts High School. It's $135,267. What does that cover?
The industrial arts teachers would cover, and again, we're working with this new chart of accounts, but that would be Mr. Bazzanati, I believe, and Irene, do you have that itemized? Because again, John, all of these chart of accounts ended up with teachers getting put under titles that are not consistent with the ones that we used in the past.
Oh. But is that going to be for two teachers, for the auto teacher and the wood shop?
The wood, I know, John.
Oh, that's further down. I remember. Yeah, it's next, two more down.
Yeah, and the wood is in grant funding again. It's the 0.4.
Okay, it's going to be 0.4 at the 29,000.
It is. It's in the stabilization funds again next year. That's why it won't show up here.
Okay. All right, and I just want education supplies for the automotive high school at zero. Are they going to operate without any money?
No, they are going to operate with money also.
Okay.
This is really, it's a chart of accounts concern.
All right.
I've already, just so you know, each of the line items from last year, there was an overall 10% cut in supplies and materials OM account to the high school. As a consequence of that, the automotive went from the figure from last year to $4,000. It's a little bit lower.
Okay.
But it is being funded at that amount.
Now, when you get the new software, will we get another copy of this so we can check it?
Yeah, I think, and when we have the software now,
okay.
We're working with the software company to straighten out line item titles that coincide with the way that we have operated in the past.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
John, may I answer your question regarding the home ec? That $8,550, that's going to tech ed. Ed supplies computer-aided design.
Computer-aided design?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Other questions? Mr. Waldeck?
Superintendent Smith, there were just two
two items that when I was skimming through this over the past few minutes that I just wanted to ask questions about. One of them, I'll start with the one in. Let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages from the back. I'm sorry, 9 pages from the back. It's right page behind the blue and gold page. And it actually is just a line item at the bottom of the page. It says graduation all expenses high school, and it looks like the number went up from $6,000 in FY10 to $14,000 in FY11. I'm just curious what we thought that might represent.
So, Mr. Wilder, you're under high school or?
Under high school, the very first section of high school. It's about 9 pages back. Four lines from the bottom. It says graduation all expenses.
Yep. Everybody have that?
Yeah. What happened was that Mr. Brown, over the course of last year, the actual expenses for the graduation was about $14,000, and had to take money from other accounts in order to cover it. And so in shifting the accounts this year, he wanted to get a more accurate figure. So we did spend. That doesn't represent any sort of increase in vendors, etc. It's the same kind of ceremony, the same the certificates. Everything remains the same.
Perfect. My other question is actually on the very last page, and it's in the last section under technology. And I was just hoping to learn why the second line item from the top, Tech Network, SYSWD, went up from the 109 to 251, 478.
That's, I think you are familiar with Scantron and X2, with the new student information system that we adopted, as well as the new assessment system that we adopted. That accounts for a large portion of that. That was not included in last year's budget, but it is now in the budget for next year.
So now, is it safe to say that this is a one-time expenditure, or is this something that
No.
every year?
Both are licenses.
They're licenses.
The X2 is a student information system that is run on a license, and the Scantron, it's the same thing. It's a per-pupil cost.
And are these a yearly renewal?
It's a yearly renewal.
Yeah.
It is.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wilder. Other questions? From either the left or the right? From the chair. So we're operating, everybody understands, we're operating off of the, which I believe was the number voted the other night by the committee, the $49,249,471. As a point of information, I believe there are, based upon my review of staff's estimation on holdover, together with the ultimate city council vote on the local budget number, together with potential available state resources, there is enough money to support the $249,471 comfortably. The question I would have is, I know that Sid, you made some adjustments to the budget that was in place prior to the $600,000 reduction, just to be able to adjust and account for that should the funds not appear. So are there any further reductions in staff or reductions in program contained in the proposed adjustments to account for $600,000 less?
No, all of the adjustments were made in utilities, transportation, and substitute teacher accounts.
Does everybody follow? So in general, I would say with a certain amount of confidence, we will be able to certainly support this level of spending, which allows us to follow through on our commitment under the recently bargained memorandum of agreement with the Malden Education Associations. That kind of takes care of my concerns as a result of activity happening since Monday and Tuesday night. So I feel confident in the document, and we can reconfirm, or we can take any more questions or concerns. Otherwise, we voted this number the other night. We can reconfirm it tonight if we want to do that. That's correct.
So do you want to make a motion that we reconfirm the new money from the city is $46,884,198, an additional, in addition to the holdover
Plus
account,
potential holdover.
the potential holdover of $1,765,000.
Plus, I would call it plus potential outside resources, including the $600,000, theoretically set in reserve. The one thing the committee should know, that is not necessarily in reserve for the public schools. It's a reserve item that can be used and might be used any number of ways before we ever get to it. But in terms of its legally disposable availability to the city council, that's not to say that they won't necessarily directly apply it to school department needs, but we should at least be aware that it can be disposed of in other ways, in conjunction with activity from my office and the city council. So we should just have our eyes wide open in terms of the fact that it's not specifically set aside for the public schools. That being said, I believe there are additional available state resources to be able to backstop at least that $600,000 in combination with the holdover funds, backstop the total number of the 49,249,471.
I understand that since it will be in the city council, it's not really dedicated, but last night at the city council meeting, they specifically said and told the superintendent that that money will be held for the school department. I mean, maybe it is more theoretically, and if another need arises in the city, that they will use that, but it was told that it would be held sort of separate, and hopefully that we won't have to really worry about that.
And I take the point, and I would assume that under the right circumstances, the appropriate votes would be made to make the resources available to the school department. I'm just kind of drawing a very clear line around what is the technical issue about the availability of the money. But I'm still comfortable, so that's my main point. All right. Second motion by Mr. Iovino. Mr. Froyo.
Yes, I'd like to ask one question. Is it a possibility that $600,000 can be used to help out the units that did not accept the new insurance plan?
Yeah, it's a possibility. It can be endlessly used to any appropriation made under the entire City of Malden budget last evening. So it's in what's technically called the revenue reserve line item. It's available to be applied against anything that has been voted within the budget for this year.
Well, I myself have a problem with that. That can happen because the teachers went out to help us out, and then if the other unions settle and get a raise and so forth, and they don't have any layoffs after the teachers have stood by us, I don't feel right with that.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to sound an alarm that it isn't necessarily there. I'm just trying to draw a very clear distinction on what can be done. And I wasn't there and did not hear any of the so-called promises made. And I'm sure that the counselors would follow through on whatever indications they said the money could be used for in support of further obligations on the Malden Public Schools. But that being said, I believe there are adequate resources anyway, is what I'm saying.
Okay, I know you were honest in the deliberations.
Yeah.
And, I don't want it to come back to hurt you too if something like that happens. But it's the way it goes, I guess. Thank you.
I'm sure it'll all work out. Mr. Malden.
Just a point of clarification. So the number that we're voting on tonight, or the number that we're reconfirming tonight, includes the $600,000 that are designated on the sheet that we have in front of us for revenue reserve.
I think that is the distinction I am trying to draw. You cannot claim that $600,000 as an available fund to you.
So how can we be voting on the total available?
Because I'm advising that I believe there are available resources, including the potential of the $600,000, to backstop the $49,249,471 voted figure. So I'm comfortable that there are available resources to support the overall obligations that the committee is taking on by voting that and re-voting that number. All I'm saying is it's a potential resource. It is not an allocated resource. It is not in a line item that says Malden Public Schools. So,
and if the money comes in under the 2.3 that's expected,
right.
In other words, if it comes in at the 1.7, that $600,000 is still not specifically going to be designated towards us. It's going to be sort of at the discretion of the council to give it to us.
It's absolutely at the discretion of the council and also at the discretion of the mayor, by the way.
No, yeah.
But it absolutely has to be voted by a majority of the council for a specific purpose, not only for Malden Public Schools, but for any other purpose to support, if desired, any other line item, within the school, within the entire City of Malden budget. So that's.
Well, so I guess my real point of clarification is, shouldn't we be voting on the subtotal number, not the total available number?
That's a good point, but I'm advising alternatively. I'm saying that even without that line item specifically allocated toward the budgetary commitments that you are making by voting the number that you are, that there will be available resources to backstop the larger number.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Winston.
Yeah, my understanding is that some of the major adjustments that have been made to allow that reserve to be shifted to the city side are related to utilities, and I'm looking at, I guess it's the fifth page in, the gas and heat system-wide and electricity system-wide. I just want to understand a little bit from Ms. Oliver. We almost, at least last year, we budgeted almost $2 million for between gas, heat, and electricity, and it looks like this year we're going to be budgeting just $1 million. Now, what did we actually end up spending in 2010? Do you know offhand what we actually spent? I mean, what? It's about 5 pages in under administration. It says, yeah.
It was closer to about just under $2 million.
So in FY 2010, we actually spent $2 million on utilities.
We saved. Well, that I don't have the final figures, so I have in front of me a worksheet with a projection in there. So it's about between 1.7 and 1.9. That's electricity, gas, and the gas delivery.
So that's what we actually spent, somewhere 1.7, and then we're only budgeting $1 million for those things this year.
We also expect savings with the renovation. Some of the units will be turned down.
So we're going to expect 50% saving. That's pretty dramatic.
Right. And the city has also negotiated a contract with the company with a 2% savings.
How much percent?
2%.
2%
Overall.
So, but this is a 50% reduction there. So it's
I'm trying to draw the point out that the superintendent has made certain adjustments to accommodate, the lack of the additional $600,000. Everybody here understands that we understand that somehow additional resources, if needed, are going to be made available in order to be able to support the number that we're committing to. Again, and there are a number of adjustments that CIT has made that may require further funding
during the course of the fiscal year. That source of the funding could be that $600,000.
So, all right. So just that's understood. So, and this is where, I mean, this line, these items here where that $600,000 reserve was made, basically, a key part.
All right. Megan is over. Any other questions? Motion by Ms. Crowe, seconded by Mr. Iavino.
Just repeat that motion.
So I believe her motion was to reconfirm the fiscal year 2011 budgetary number of $49,249,471 for the Malden Public Schools, as presented by the superintendent, and I believe recommended by the budget subcommittee. Okay. All right. So we need a roll call on the reconfirming motion.
Mr. Casucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Froyle?
Yes.
Mr. Iavino?
Yes.
Mr. Altrino is absent. Mr. Waldoy?
Yes.
Mr. Winslow?
Yes.
Mayor Howard?
Yes. I thank the superintendent for the additional late night work over the last 3 or 4 days especially, and also the committee members for showing their level of concern and support for the overall level of resources for the Malden Public Schools. I think our business on the budget is completed, and we can adjourn, but we can take some additional points as well. Mr. Winslow?
I'm just wondering if we can pass some sort of resolution requesting that the council inform us at least 48 hours in advance of any resolution they have to spend that money, or I'm just trying to think of how we would get notice if there is some proposal to spend that $600,000 and that we be involved in the discussion. So,
well, you can pass any resolution you want.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean they'll provide you. I mean, the way the spending out of any kind of line item like that works is it has to be initiated by my office and then voted on by the city council. So you could certainly, you understand that. I understand that it's a target for backstopping what it is we've done here. So I would certainly give the committee any kind of heads up that somehow that resource might be depleted if it were potentially to be depleted. And obviously, if that were to happen, I would want to be in a position to suggest where other resources would come from to support what it is we're voting here this evening. So the concept that you get early notice, you could consider it being done by my office if that gives you any more sleeping.
I'm fine with that. If the other members are fine with that. So. All right, great. Thanks.
Anything else? Otherwise, we can adjourn. Is there any announcements? No? See you all on the 4th of July, as everybody said the last meeting. Motion adjourned by Mr. Iavino.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.